There's a certain look people give you when you say, with complete sincerity, that old cars are better than modern ones. It's the same look you'd get if you announced you still listen to music on cassettes, or that you've recently taken up medieval blacksmithing, a mix of confusion, amusement, and subtle concern. But here's the thing, old cars are better, and not in the ironic, I liked them before they were cool retro, hipster kind of way. I mean genuinely, experientially, emotionally better. And today I'd like to explain why, gently, reasonably, and with occasional references to cars that have needed therapy more often than servicing. Let's begin. 1. Old cars have soul, and modern cars have software updates. Modern cars are incredible. They can park themselves, avoid collisions, and some of them even apologize when you try to indicate incorrectly. But they do not have soul. They have interfaces. They have warning chimes that sound like your dishwasher finishing a cycle. Compare that to an old Mercedes W123 warming up on a winter morning. There's a smell, a hum, a sense of the car clearing its throat before speaking to you. Or a classic Mini that rattles, vibrates, and cheerfully wobbles its way down the road, like a dog too excited for its own legs. Modern cars glide, old cars live. Modern cars feel like they were designed by committees. Old cars feel like they were dreamt up by slightly mad geniuses with drafting pencils and questionable haircuts. 2. Old cars demand your attention and reward it. Modern cars want you relaxed, distracted, and effectively irrelevant. Most will brake for you, steer for you, and judge you silently through lane assist cameras. Drive something like an old BMW E30, however, and you are suddenly awake. You are listening. You're paying attention to the idle, the feel of the steering, the smell of, is that petrol? Should it smell like petrol? An old car pulls you into the moment by necessity. It's mindfulness, but with more mechanical sympathy. You can't zone out. You can't doom scroll. You can't even sneeze without considering how the carburetor feels about it. And in that strange tactile relationship between human and machine, something happens. You remember what driving is. Not a task, not a commute, not an algorithm. A connection. 3. Old cars teach you character. Modern cars hide it. Modern cars are smooth, predictable, and engineered to feel identical across thousands of units. A Volkswagen today feels like a Volkswagen tomorrow, even if tomorrow's Volkswagen is technically a rebadged Skoda. But old cars, every single one has its own personality, its own backstory, its own grumpy morning habits. Your friend might own the same model year, same spec, same colour, and somehow their heater works and yours doesn't. Your locks freeze, theirs won't unlock after rain. Your dashboard rattles at 40 miles per hour, theirs rattles at 37.5. Every old car is unique. Like snowflakes that rust, a modern car hides its quirks behind layers of electronics and stability control. An old car puts its quirks on loudspeaker and then throws in a bonus squeak from somewhere you haven't identified in 3 years. And the funny thing is, that's what makes them charming. 4. Modern cars are fast. Old cars feel fast. Take almost any modern family hatchback, let's say a Ford Fiesta. It's quicker than many old sports cars. It corners better. It stops better. It does everything better, and yet it doesn't feel fast. It feels efficient, like a highly competent appliance. Now get into something from the 70s, a Triumph Spitfire for example. You do 40 and it feels like 80. You do 60 and it feels like 140. You do 70 and you start bargaining with whichever deity handles structural integrity. In an old car, speed has flavour, wind noise, vibrations, a speedometer that shakes like it's had too much coffee. All of it creates drama. You finish a drive in an old car and feel alive. You finish a drive in a modern car and feel like you've just arrived. 5. Old cars let you participate. Modern cars entertain you. There's a reason people are nostalgic for old Hondas and Toyotas with manual gearboxes. Changing gear yourself is fun. Balancing a clutch is fun. Listening to an engine instead of a synthesized engine noise through speakers is also fun. Modern cars often try to entertain you with huge screens and animated menus. Meanwhile, an old car entertains you by simply being a car. Take something like a classic Subaru. You turn the key, something mechanical happens. The flat four burbles, you feel the road. You actually drive, you're not swiping, scrolling, tapping, pairing, updating or rebooting anything. And that simplicity feels like fresh air for the brain. 6 old cars connect you to people. Modern cars connect to the cloud. You take an old MG Jaguar or Alfa Romeo to a petrol station. You are not filling up. You are starting a conversation. People love old cars. They want to ask about them, share memories, tell you about the one they once had that caught fire, but in a charming way. Modern cars don't start conversations. Modern cars silently upload your data to a server somewhere. Old cars bring out nostalgia. Modern cars bring out update notifications. It's not the same energy. 7. Finally, old cars remind you that joy doesn't need perfection. Modern cars are nearly flawless. Quiet, smooth, efficient, predictable. Old cars are none of those things. And that's exactly why they make us smile. A slightly faded paint job, a bit of patina, a carb that needs persuading on cold mornings, a heater that has 2 settings, sauna and Arctic. These things aren't flaws, they're personality traits. You don't love an old car despite its imperfections. You love it because of them. They remind you of a simple, liberating truth. You don't need everything to be perfect to enjoy it. Sometimes the best things in life are the ones that wobble, leak, squeak, and surprise you, but still carry you home with a grin on your face. So yes, modern cars may have efficiency, safety, technology, and comfort, but old cars have heart, and sometimes heart is better than horsepower screens or software. And that's why, yes really, they're better. Every creak, every vibration, every quirk, it all adds up to something modern cars can't replicate. A driving experience that feels alive. Owning a classic car does something subtle to the way you drive. At first, you think you're just learning how to keep an old machine alive, but somewhere along the way, without any formal training or advanced driving courses, your habits start to change, and oddly enough, they tend to make you a better driver, even when you're back in something modern and sensible. Here are 3 of them. The first habit is listening. Classic cars demand it. A modern car filters everything out for you. The noises, the vibrations, the feedback. But an older machine doesn't bother with subtle hints. A slight change in engine note on an old Alfa, a new vibration through the wheel of an MG, or a gearbox that suddenly feels a little less cooperative in a Porsche from the 90s. These are all conversations, and if you ignore them, the car will escalate the discussion. So you learn to listen, to notice, to anticipate, and that habit sticks. You become the kind of driver who feels what the car is doing instead of just reacting when something goes wrong. The second habit is looking further ahead. Classic brakes are, how shall we put this, optimistic. Whether you're in an early Jaguar, a Triumph with a personality, or anything Italian that prefers enthusiasm over urgency, you very quickly learn that last-second decisions are a terrible idea. You start reading the road earlier, you spot traffic building long before it becomes a problem. You leave space, you plan, not because you're being virtuous, but because it's easier than standing on a brake pedal that was designed in another century. And once you've learned that skill, you never really lose it. Even in a modern car with enormous brakes and a dozen safety systems, you're calmer, smoother, and far less rushed. The third habit is mechanical sympathy. Classic cars reward gentleness. They don't like being rushed when they're cold. They don't appreciate aggressive gear changes. and they absolutely remember if you've been unkind to them. So you adapt, you warm things up properly, you shift more smoothly, you drive with intention rather than impatience. Whether it's a softly sprung French saloon, a slightly grumpy British roadster, or an air-cooled Porsche that prefers things done just so, you learn that respect goes a long way. And here's the interesting part, that mindset transfers. You drive modern cars more smoothly, you waste less energy, you feel less stressed, you arrive more relaxed, even if you didn't arrive any faster. So yes, classic cars leak, rattle, and occasionally test your commitment to the hobby, but in return, they quietly train you to be more attentive, more patient, and more aware behind the wheel. Not bad for something with no driver aids, questionable reliability, and an owner's manual that assumes you already know what you're doing. Sometimes the best driving lessons don't come from technology. They come from old machines that simply ask you to pay attention. If you're thinking about your next car, you've probably been told to be sensible, something efficient, something reliable, something that pairs nicely with a spreadsheet. But there's a quiet, rebellious alternative. One that smells faintly of petrol, makes interesting noises, and occasionally asks for patience instead of blind faith. An old and interesting car. And here are 3 reasons why it might be the best decision you'll ever justify to your friends. Reason 1. Old cars have personality. Modern cars are very good, almost suspiciously good. They start every time, isolate you from the outside world, and politely beep if you look like you're having a thought of your own. An older car doesn't do that. It communicates differently. A classic Alfa will tell you how it's feeling through the steering wheel. An MG might rise up theatrically before it's ready to leave. A classic Rolls-Royce won't just go around a corner, it will discuss it with you first. You don't just drive these cars, you negotiate with them, and somehow that makes every journey more memorable. Reason 2. Old cars make ordinary moments feel special. A trip to the shops in a modern car is an administrative task. In something older, it becomes an event. You park a classic Mini or an old Mercedes, and suddenly strangers want to talk to you. People smile. Someone tells you they had one, just like that in 1988, and regrets selling it every day since. Old cars turn errands into stories. They slow you down just enough to notice where you are, what you're doing, and why you bothered leaving the house in the first place. Reason 3. Old cars teach you useful life skills, patience, listening, improvisation, carrying a small but emotionally significant collection of tools. An old Volkswagen or Alfa doesn't break to punish you. It breaks to teach you humility. It encourages you to understand how things work, or at least to develop a healthy relationship with your local mechanic. More importantly, old cars cure you of the illusion that everything should be instant and perfect. They remind you that progress isn't always about speed. Sometimes it's about connection. Now, are old cars practical? Not always. Are they efficient? Rarely. Will they test your optimism at inconvenient moments? Absolutely. But they give you something modern cars can't, a sense of involvement. A feeling that you're part of the process, not just cargo being moved from one place to another. So if you're choosing your next car, maybe don't ask what's fastest, newest, or most sensible. Ask what will make you smile on a quiet road. What will turn a normal day into a small adventure? What will still be interesting long after the novelty wears off? Because life is already efficient enough. Your car doesn't need to be.